Welcome to the Amplifying Leadership podcast. I am your host, Tara Lehman, a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. This podcast is a place dedicated to amplifying your leadership through guest stories, tips, information, and more. To learn more about our leadership division, please visit us anytime at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Dr. Riza Kadilar, former president of EMCC Global. Welcome to Amplifying Leadership.
So good to be here. Hello.
Hello. I can't wait to talk about our topic, something I think we're both very passionate about. But before we get started, why don't you tell those listening a little bit about you and your leadership story?
Wow. I'm sure if they dig in a little bit on LinkedIn, they will find even more than they need about my story. All I can say, I had this dual hat all through my life since I joined the professional life. On one hand, I was a business leader, banker, senior banker, executive, international, mainly European scene. But at the same time, I was pretty active in the NGOs for civil society, including for me, coaching started as a hobby. So I also
Oh, yes.
joined the coaching professional bodies as before a practitioner, maybe as a kind of buyer, user of the service. That now I'm after 30 years in banking and business, I'm more independent. So I do have my own toys. Let's say I'm an investor in technology domain. I invest in scale-ups and startup companies.
Ah,
I'm a writer. I like writing books and I share my experience through my trainings and everything. And I'm also actively involved in executive coaching and mentoring domain, especially on the international scene. When I say international, mainly European, my sphere.
yeah.
And my leadership kind of on the business side is it track positions in different banks. And on the NGO side, it was a bit more diverse because I got into a leadership development organization, then this community development organizations, and lately mainly professional bodies, including EMCC, which used to be European Mentoring and Coaching Council, rebranded it, and now it's EMCC Global, as we have members all over the world. So I served them for 2 terms, each 3 years, and an extension of 1 year. So I'm recently off.
Wow.
I'm easy doing my formal president title. So
Yes.
that's the kind of journey.
Excellent. Lots of background there for sure. And doing coaching and mentoring is important, as you and I both know. It's very important for people to do that. Let's talk about inclusion and being inclusive leaders today. An awesome topic and one I'm pretty passionate about. Why don't you start by explaining what this actually means to you? How do you define it?
It's a feeling, it's an emotion. You know, I always say diversity is an action plan. You agree, you decide which kind of diversity you want, then you tick the box and everything. Inclusion is a feeling. Inclusion is a feeling to be seen, to be heard, to be respected, to feel safe, secure, and even on top, like having a willingness to perform, be your best.
Hmm.
So when you feel included, I think those things come into play. So that's why I
Yeah.
define inclusion as a feeling of being heard, seen, secured, safe,
Hmm.
and a
Yeah.
willingness to perform better and better.
Absolutely, because we all want to feel valued, don't we? We want to be heard. We want to be able to provide feedback into whatever's going on and feel that safety of doing it as well. So that is exactly how I would define it as well. Being heard, being valued, being trusted, those types of things. Let's start with thinking about the challenges that organizations are currently facing or that maybe leaders face around this, because a lot of companies still struggle with inclusion and those types of things. So, what are some of the challenges that you maybe see these days?
First of all, the reason why we're talking about inclusion is not just the wishy-washy, we are civilized, let's create a
Hmm.
better world kind of thing. It's also an obligation because with
Hmm.
AI, machine learning, once the machine learns there's one way or a better way, forget about diversity. There will be one dominant way of doing everything or being for everything. Although humanity has this richness of our diversity. And as the pandemic show, and there are so many empirical studies, more diverse you have your teams in terms of age, gender, beliefs, geography, background, whatever you name it, more resilient, more quality decision making, more better judgment. So there are so many empirical studies given all and the Asian cultures coming into play and everything. So at the end of the day, inclusion is not nice to have, but kind of a must in order to
Mm-hmm.
secure our future. The problem, we are all wired with billions of millions, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years of wiring in our brains. And as Dr. Harari says in his book, Homo sapiens was not the strongest or fastest or wildest or whatever, but they knew how to get organized. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
they win over other homos and conquered the world. And all through history, those communities who get organized better perform better,
Mm-hmm.
which means we implicitly design systems to create people alike so that they can perform better. So now I'm
Right.
telling you diversity is better than being alike. So think about the belief systems, think about the education system, think about the military, think about everything, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Company cultures. In order to perform better, you create a kind of a community of people who are homogeneous, alike, like,
Mm-hmm. Similar. Yeah. Yeah.
and the problem, that's a recipe for disaster, as I said, with AI, technology, changing demographics and everything. So the
Mm-hmm.
problem for leaders today, how can we deliberately change a wiring, a kind of system, the biases, conscious, unconscious biases. These are big problems. You
Yeah.
can deal
Yeah.
with them, but still, implicitly under pressure, this is who I am. I come up with my generalizations, patterns, and everything. One thing that was really interesting writing this book was one of the biggest barriers is our privileges. Like
Yes.
about what is a privilege? It doesn't have to be a very, sexy, interesting, whatever topic. For example, if you use your right hand, you are privileged because many door handles, many things in the world are designed for people who are using their right hand.
Mm-hmm.
If you can walk, you are privileged. If, for example, in certain settings, if you're a man, you're privileged. If you are educated, you're privileged. And most of those privileges, either we get it de facto, I use my right hand,
Mm-hmm.
or I deserve them. I worked hard. I studied hard. I really kind of, win exams. And now I'm telling you that these are in your way as a barrier for inclusion. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the challenges. Even though we all want to be inclusive, on one hand, we are all kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's science, okay? It's mathematical. It's perfect fact that we
Mm-hmm.
increase our inclusivity. But on the other hand, there is a system in me which is designed over thousands of years, which are causing problems for the good reasons to protect me, to make me better. But then
Mm-hmm.
it requires a deliberate action, a
Mm-hmm.
willful kind of consistent effort to be
Mm-hmm.
aware and then what to do with it.
And I love that you brought up something very, very, very interesting for me. So, some of my audience knows that I'm an identical twin, and we are mirror identical twins. I am right-handed. She is not. She's left-handed. So when I talk about inclusive leadership, etc., I generally use this example where, if my sister and I were both building widgets for your company and the goal was 100 widgets an hour and everything is right-handed scissors because that's what's needed to build these widgets, I'm meeting that 100. My sister might not. And so we have to really even consider some of these inequities that they aren't the big things we always think about, but they could be as simple as what you're mentioning. Right-handed is a privilege. And I see it firsthand because my sister is left-handed, right? It's an amazing little thing that people just don't seem to, you're right, we're wired differently. For myself, it's a little different. I have my twin who, I can see it. It's a lot more visual for me, but the inequities can be very difficult to see that way because we don't think that way. What are more thoughts you have about those equitable practices out there? Because I think it's such an interesting topic and very unconscious, which is another great thing you said, the unconscious bias or the unconscious that we believe everybody's the same as us. I'd love to dig into that further.
When I was writing the book and doing my research, of course, I identified all the definition, the formulas, and everything about inclusion. But the core question is, how can I increase my capacity for inclusion? Okay, I need
Hmm.
a recipe for that. Otherwise, it's nice to write
Mm,
and being aware, but so what? And I worked with prominent academics all over the world and everything, and we couldn't find the solution to this problem, to the question.
mm.
But finally, we agreed that the best solution is just be aware of what you are excluding.
Yeah, bring the unconscious conscious almost, right?
Exactly, exactly. What
Yeah.
I'm really avoiding, excluding, and this doesn't have to be like different people. I'm talking about different topics,
Hmm.
different way of lives, because all inclusion topic is also goes for personal development.
Hmm.
Whenever something is different than you, it could be a person, it could be a culture, but it could be a new topic, it could be a new way of life. It's similar,
Hmm.
same part
Absolutely.
of the brain, like functions. Then, if you are aware what you're excluding, then comes into play this famous basic gestalt, isn't it? So
Hmm.
you deal with the resistance.
Yeah.
The resistance tells you something, prevents you something from something, unwanted outcomes and everything. But when you honor the resistance, the change occurs, the paradox of change. So what I came up with very basic understanding of this coaching approach. Everything starts with a wish, willingness to be more inclusive, if you believe
Hmm.
in so. And then be aware, identify what you exclude, and then you don't have to include everything in your life. Then you have a choice to make. You can work with the resistance, and if you believe the resistance really serves you well, you don't have to include everything in your life. But then you have an intelligent, informed decision to make. Otherwise, you just live your life with all this bias, unconscious, conscious,
Mm.
or whatever the privilege. All those things kind of become they create a kind of um, barrier in your life.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to change, but no. But once you're aware, you have the option.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So what is a strategy that you maybe have in your book or that you present to clients of how do I even figure out what I am excluding? Because a lot of people, for example, in my case, wouldn't think left-handed. They just wouldn't think that way. So how do we determine, or what strategies do we have that can help us determine what we are excluding?
Very good point. First of all, once what we are excluding, we are not aware.
Mhm.
Then life change, and it comes in front of us. It creates, for example, if you're surrounded with left-handed people around you and they start having some claims on you about tools, way of life, or whatever, so then you start thinking about, oh no, my lifestyle is under threat. It could be man, woman in the workplace.
Okay.
For many men, they feel threatened with all the possibilities offered for women. This is for good. We all know this is really serving a great purpose. But at the end of the day, once you feel this resistance in you, the stress in you, it's a gift. It tells you there is something wrong, but at the same time an opportunity for you to adapt.
Hmm.
One of the anecdotes while writing this book, I used to be a general manager of a bank in Turkey, and
Hmm.
I moved my family to the Netherlands for my daughter's schooling and everything. And I was commuting in between, okay? And one day
Hmm.
I came, she's going to high school, learning about inclusion, diversity, equity, all these topics and everything. And she said, and she loves me, I love her, okay? She said, Dad, you are the one we need to get rid of.
Interesting. What did she mean by that?
She said, "You are the heterosexual, the man,
Right.
white, middle
Ah,
age, gray
gotcha.
hair, in power. You are the CEO in everything. You are the one who is the like in the way of change." And I said, "But wait a minute. I'm just moving and coming back to the Netherlands. And in Netherlands, I don't have a job title. I don't have a job. I even
Hmm.
don't speak the language. I'm trying to build a new life here. All these things that you're telling me about are irrelevant. So, am I really the barrier? Am I really the obstacle for change? Or is my implicit position?"
Mm. Hmm.
So that was a kind of eye-opener for me. No one wants to be a problem in the system. No one wants to be a barrier
Mhm.
for change. No one want to kind of, prevent all those good things happening in the world. But contextual, positional, situational, cultural, many things kind of shape us in such a way.
Mhm.
Unless we make a deliberate choice, we may become the obstacle.
Right. So let's say we're finding out what our resistances are and we're starting to adjust this. Let's talk a little bit more about culture of an organization. Since you mentioned the word culture, it got me thinking about this. How can inclusion actually be creating cultures that are better for us, not only just at the leadership table, because we know that different diverse backgrounds or whatever those diversities are very important at the leadership table, but for the culture as a whole of an organization, how does it foster trust, belonging, collaboration, and that ability to be able to feel comfortable saying what I need to say and not, being felt bad because I was the woman saying
It's an amazingly loaded question. So allow
it.
me to attack from different angles.
Please
One
do,
angle
please
is
do.
inclusion helps um, for cultural systems to be vigilant about how rigid they are. For
Mm,
example, in the book, I'm mentioning the definition of culture. I say this is what you notice during your first 90 days when you join a company.
mm, yeah.
Because then it becomes custom, it becomes normal, and you just kind of, either you can live with it or if you can't, but if you do, you tend to not even notice it, okay?
Hmm.
And if there's this cultural blindness in the systems, in the companies, which kind of creates a kind of danger, because if environment change, clients change, the whole culture change, many things change in the world. But unless you have this inclusive approach for newcomers and you listen to them, it's very difficult to see where you should change or what are the
Mm,
things around you changing that you can't cope with. And that could be a big problem if you don't follow the regulatory client or whatever, the big teams of today's society and everything,
hmm.
especially with social media and everything. So being inclusive in that respect really creates these antennas, the sensors in the system to be vigilant, how rigid we are, what we are determined to protect, and what we are determined to also kind of serve, who is our Lord, and everything with these questions. The second part is psychological safety, of course. Because
Yes.
if you are, the old saying, we work with you, we work excellent, we collaborate with you, despite our differences.
Hmm.
We change this word, we collaborate, we work with you with our differences. So this despite
Yes.
becoming with.
It's a
It's
lot more collaborative, right? It sounds even more collaborative.
it's just one word. It's easy.
Yeah.
So there are so many wordings, sayings, jargons. In the book, I'm mentioning a 8 question, very light, easy questionnaire. One of the questions about jargons, because they do create exclusions. If you don't understand what it
Hmm.
means, you are out. Engineers, they speak with, and if you're not
Yeah.
an engineer, you're out, whatever, this kind of thing. It used to
Right.
serve well, now it's a problem. So that's why I think psychological safety, supported by a culture of being able to listen to each other, and of course, very basic principles, but very difficult principles like respect.
Hmm.
For example, when I say respect, we may all understand it a bit differently. The
Very
old
true.
cultures can say, I'm older, you listen to me, I'm the boss here. And the younger
Yeah.
generation can say, I have the freedom to object, to react, or whatever. Both of them are asking for respect. So that's
Hmm.
why the coaching culture really helps, because I think inclusion is a totally a great coaching topic, because if you know how to listen to each other, if you know how to define the words, the meanings of these words, and talk about it openly, I think there's a chance that we can create the psychological safety, which will serve how inclusion would help having a better work or social environments for us.
A lot of companies too, they have these silos or, those jargons that fit just with engineering, which creates that kind of silo feeling. How do we start to build an organization where it's safe to belong to engineering, but also make sure that everyone feels included in maybe decisions or decision making. How do we break down some of that jargon and silos that are there?
Again, big question. Those change comes
Hmm.
from three different angles. One, top to bottom. We
Yep.
need
Hmm.
leaders who are aware of this and create some crisis so that people react. It could be
Right.
geopolitics, it could be clients, it could be markets, it could be anything. Or it could come from the bottom. From bottom, I mean the newcomers, new generations, generation X, Y, Z, whatever they kind of claim, and sometimes it comes from the side. It could be regulation. It could
Mm.
be Europe really prefer this regulatory work. I know US is not. But I think we got to be careful about what path we choose. But the best way is to bring them three together,
Hmm.
having a kind of strong leadership, open and brave enough, but also the stakeholders who will claim, and also not to create problem with regulation, but also find the best regulation or the other side factors, competition and everything to create this change. Otherwise, once you're successful and once you're in a good place, why to change, okay? But if you
Hmm.
don't change, if you don't adapt, we know the story.
And I want to come back to a word you just said, which is the word brave. And that can be something that leaders need is bravery and courage when we're trying to build this into an organization that is quote unquote traditional, where it's not really welcomed right now. And so we know that there's a lot of those types of organizations around. What would you say to them about getting out of that traditional and getting courage and bravery to become more inclusive, especially if they want to move forward? Because we know companies that don't tend to start to fall behind. What would you say to them?
To start with, it's their choice. Okay, so I'm not a
Hmm.
kind of missionary. I'm not really here
Yep,
to make
fair.
everyone inclusive and everything. Everyone has their own choice. But what I would tell them, at what cost?
Hmm.
Or what it really serves for them not to change, not to adapt, not to be inclusive. There could be good reasons for them not to change.
Hmm.
For example, in many military systems in the world, those topics are like taboo, okay? So they don't want to change. That's okay,
Right.
as long as
Yep.
it's okay. But with all changing technological warfare and everything, they're also putting themselves in a kind of wrong position by not
Hmm.
allowing the new talent to come in and everything. So the big question is, what for? What will be your ultimate goal with this change or not? And if you have a kind of inclusive dialogue to listen to your partners, stakeholders, and everything, and you are happy to live and bear the consequences and the results and everything, so why not to change? But if you do, then you don't have to change everything all at once.
No,
You
definitely not.
change your values, your systems, whatever you because the question is what the world will miss tomorrow if you cease to exist, okay? What
Hmm.
is unique offer to the world? As long as
Hmm.
you don't lose that, I think it's much more fun and joy to be able to adapt to different. But at the same time, we should also be true to ourselves and the companies, organizations. There's a
Hmm.
there's a reason for being, a purpose. We shouldn't
Yeah.
also forget that. Yeah.
And I think it's really important to also come back to something you just mentioned is that you don't have to do everything at once. If this is new and you want to do this, start, just start, right? I mean, you don't have to all of a sudden tomorrow change 100% of everything. It could be just a start. It could be with your hiring practice and your next person you hire is more inclusive or whatever that looks like. But it's about just starting, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 What would you say is a key takeaway for summing up our conversation today? Because I know that you and I could talk about this all day, but we need to sum this up for our audience. Do you have that key takeaway or something that maybe we missed sharing that you really want to share today?
I don't know. I think we covered it pretty well because this is nothing new. Okay, so we are kind
Mm,
of all aware of those things. It's been around, like me, us, others, whatever. But I think what I would really invite our listeners to think about what's really changing in their environment, in their life, in their business, in their communities, so that those topics are more relevant today. So
mhm.
once they have these clues, then it's a good starting point to check whether there is something to be done or not.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I would love for our audience to be able to find you online, purchase one of your books, learn more about you. Where can they find you? How can they
Yeah,
do that?
you have my name here, LinkedIn or Google search, whatever, so they will land somewhere. And
Okay.
it's easy from then on. So once they find me somewhere on social media, or when I say social media, LinkedIn mainly, but also
Okay.
the web page and everything. So yeah.
So this is audio only, so I'm going to spell your name. First name is Riza. Last name is Kadilar if you're looking him up on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for such a great conversation, wonderful insights and tips today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thanks for hosting me. This lovely talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you, of course, to our audience. We do hope you gained some valuable insights or information from today's conversation with Riza. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a great rating. This does help us and our guests like Riza reach even more leaders with helpful stories, advice, and tips. We love helping other leaders grow and thrive, and we would love for you to consider our Amplifying Leadership Circle community because you do not need to lead alone. We know leadership is better when we do it together. For more information about our community and all of our Amplifying Leadership services, please visit us anytime at amplifyingleadership.ca, a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. Until next time, remember, leadership matters.